Hello everyone, welcome to another edition of Big Talk on Global TV, where we'll take issues at frank as it is. And today we'll be taking a look at a very disturbing subject matter in the country, the issue of power outages we are having in the country and experiencing in the country. Of course, we had that from about 2008 down to 2013 was when the formalizations to privatize the power sector. And since then, the intentions was to modernize the sector and allow it to meet the country's growing demand for electricity. The issue of electricity has affected everyone, the small businesses, scales, and all Nigerians. And of course, it has affected the economy. Even at the time like with this, where we need a growing economy and of course to strengthen the small scales, it's really affecting. And of course, we'll be taking a discourse today to look at the issues in the power sectors. How can Nigeria get electricity? If countries like Ghana and other neighboring countries are having good electricity like Togo, how come Nigeria, the giant of Africa, is still lacking behind? These are the issues that we'll be taking a look today with my guest, who is the engineer Adesoji Osoba, and a vice president of Society of Electrical Engineers here in Abuja, FCT. We'll be taking a look at all of these issues to x-ray and give us a point direction. And if there is hope for Nigeria to have good and steady electricity, good to have you join us on the program today.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yeah, you are, of course, you are living in Nigeria. I understand you may be out of this country, but for now, you've been experiencing what other Nigerians are experiencing. This is getting worrisome.
Most definitely.
This is getting most worrisome. And give us a background of the fact that government have privatized the issue of power, and we're still finding it very hard. You know, had it been it was run by government, people would have kept on, accusing government of not doing the right thing. There are structures in place by government for us to privatize our power sector, but we are still experiencing this.
Yes.
What is the issue?
Thank you very much. Let me just give you the model of how power generation to transmission and to the distribution works. It's sort of a business model. There is the generation part, there is the transmission part, and there is the distribution part. Now, this used to be what we all know to be NEPA before it became the power holding. Now, so there are three components of that business model that I've just highlighted for you: generation, transmission, and distribution. Now, what the government policy did in order to make improvement in the power sector was to bring in investors into the generation part of it, and of course the distribution part of it. Now, they still kept a large chunk of the transmission line. Now, the main problem that we have in Nigeria isn't that of a rocket science. To generate power is not a rocket science. To transmit power is not a rocket science. Neither is the distribution that is a rocket science. So the government has released the generation part to be privatized, and of course the distribution part to be privatized, while they still hold on to the transmission, which is okay. You don't want to give out everything. And of course, for security purpose, Nigeria has been advised many times, please don't leave everything. If not, there will be security challenges. Somebody can just go and start to feed around your transmission, and the entire nation can go down. Now, the problem that we are having isn't much of, I'll say, not much of generation, because if you want to generate, you can always generate. The transmission line network are there, and the government has really improved on these transmission lines. They've, widened this network all over the country, and as we speak, they are still doing that. But the problem is that the distribution part, which have now been politicized, and that is where most of the problem in Nigeria is. Just to make it known, Nigeria is not an industrialized country. So what we have is basically domestic loads, that is domestic power. And that is one of the challenges that we are having in Nigeria, where we are not able to distribute appropriately for the end users, which are usually refers to as the consumers. We are not able to do that because we have receptacles that are dilapidated. When I say receptacles, those are the equipment that are used in distributing this power that is being generated, taken into transmission before it gets to the distribution part. So more of the government policies has really affected how power is being distributed in Nigeria. And for as long as they are doing the wrong things, I can tell you for the next 50 years.
We're going to experiencing this.
Yes, we are going to keep experiencing it.
Give us a background. Prior to the privatization of the sector, how was the electricity issues in the country?
Okay, electricity issues weren't as bad as it is now. In those years, there was generation, transmission, and distribution done by that government agency called NEPA, National Electric Power Authority. And of course, the entire power system, when it is generated from Kanji Dam, drops at Oshogbo. The one from Ijoya also goes to Enugu, where it is being monitored. Now, over the years, they have come up with various, generating stations. And all these generating stations, needs to be maintained. Now, Enugu Control Center was abandoned. Oshogbo now remained. We are still generating from Kanji and dropping it at Oshogbo. You notice for many years, those that are living in that axis of Oshogbo, they don't know anything about generators because there's always light constantly there. But because of neglect, we now have dilapidated infrastructures that were not taken care of. And as a result, some group of businessmen now whisper to the ears of our government and say, let us privatize. Government has nothing to do with running electricity or selling electricity in Nigeria. Let us privatize. And that is how the history of privatization of NEPA. And as a result, they now use the word unbundled of NEPA, where it became generation, transmission, and distribution. It now became the three elements, the three composite elements in that power system. And as a result, the generation part of it was privatized. The distribution was also privatized. So it wasn't as bad as then. But because lack of maintenance led us to where we are today, when they unbundled it, and as a result, the government policy affected the running of this, part of the power system in Nigeria. And that has brought us to where we are today, where we are now dealing with epileptic power infrastructures, power supply. And it is not as if Nigeria is an industrialized nation, because most of the industries, they have moved out because of this power issue. So we have domestic load, like the type of power that you require in this studio. Those are just domestic loads. Now, even with this domestic load, we are still struggling to maintain it, to keep it running, for it to be reliable. And as a result, people are still speaking to the government, sell this to that, sell that to that. And as a result, they are giving licenses to the people who are not supposed to be in that industry. And believe me, for as long as that is being done, we are going to remain where we are. That is the honest truth.
What is the role of TCN in all of this? I'm talking of, you've mentioned of the fact that they are transmitting. And most of the issue that we're having has been this issue of distribution. Yes. Does TCN has a role to play in this?
Yes, TCN has a role to play because they are the transmission agency. They are the transmitting arm, like the middleman. When you generate, you still have to transmit to a very long distance. And that arm of the system that is maintaining that infrastructure are the...
Does distributors meet TCN or they meet...
it's a business model that is linked together. For Gencos, that is the generators, to make their profit, they need these transmission lines. And for the transmission lines to be able to bring in profit on the government side, that power that is on the transmission line needs to be distributed. Now, when the power is distributed, it means that people are billed and they are expected to pay the bills. Do you see? So generation cannot exist without transmission. Neither will transmission exist without the distribution. And of course, The issue of billing, metering is another problem in Nigeria where, things are not done properly. Why the government has left it in the hands of the people that are meant to operate, that is, those that have been given the licenses, they have not been doing it correctly. And that is why generation is saying that distribution is owing, because one of the challenge is these dilapidated infrastructures. When generation generates and send it through the transmission line, because the transmission line has metered that they have released so megawatts or so amount of energy into the system, including the losses, they want them to be paid. Now, the distribution guys, because they are struggling to collect, the bills, for them to be able to get people pay their bills, what they do is they just ground it. We call that grounding. Energy generated cannot be stored. It has to be used or wasted. So they will waste it. And as a result, there's nobody that can account for that wastage. And generation is saying, I gave you X amount of energy, I want so amount to be paid. Distribution will say, no, what got to us was not what you are claiming. Do you understand? So they have three components. They depend on each other to work. And if those things are not sorted out, I can tell you we are going to be where we are for many, many years, if not worse than this. That is the honest truth.
I'm afraid because it seems you are not making progress in the sector, regardless of the privatization. What about discos and gencos? Are they part of the distribution line that we
Yes. The gencos are the ones that are generating. When you hear gencos, that is the generating people.
And the discos are the distributors.
And the distributors. Now the
government are running after them.
Yes, you see, the government is actually the guarantors of the discos.
They are the ones that gave them contract.
They are the ones that guaranteed whatever loan that has been borrowed from any bank. Most of these loans are from Nigerian banks that they are not able to pay back. So the government are the ones giving the license, and they are also the guarantors that these people will perform. Now, these people are not performing. One of the reasons why they are not performing is that they seems not to invest enough in the distribution. What they bought is probably what they are still using till today, and these are dilapidated infrastructures. For instance, where my parents lived, where their house is, they moved into that area in 1978 with a 500 kVA in that vicinity. Then it was just about 5 or 6, 7 houses then. If you go there now, there are well over 500 houses there with the same size of transformer. So there is never an upgrade. So that's why you see that when power comes back, the transformer trips a line. It trips a fuse above it. And as a result, those connected to that transformer are not able to get supply. And don't forget, the power has been released by the gencos. But now, if you have a prepaid meter, if you don't use that unit, the unit stays there. So that is a loss to the distribution and also to the genco, because they have released it. It's just that power is not being drawn out of that transformer to make it, to not turn it into an energy that can be used at various homes. So these are some of the challenges. They appear to be little, but they are mighty in terms of the impact.
Now, let's take a look at the fact that government came out and established a body to regulate. I'm talking of the Nigeria Electricity Regulatory Authority.
Yes.
And they were to be an independent body. You know, what has been their role in tracking all of these? Have they been playing, or have they been on the plane?
NEC as NEC,
because there's a current issues of corruptions in that body, where the president has sacked all the commissioners and reappointed some new members.
Well, corruption is it's a cancer in this part of the world.
In a body that was meant to observe,
regulate? But then, let me still say it, NEC is meant to regulate what we have in the electrical network of Nigeria. To a very large extent, they are doing that. They are doing that because they are working around the clock to ensure that these tariffs are, managed, properly managed, and they commensurate with whatever that has been given. You know, they are actually the ones that are behind this. If you do not meter your customer, you don't have the right to go and ask them for, payment of the energy. You have to meter them because the government has records that...
Meter is no more free now.
Well,
Was it meant to be free?
During the time of the former president, Olusegun Obasanjo, yes, there were some meters that were donated to Nigeria. They were free in those days, yeah. But now meters are not free, even though they have been highly subsidized by the CBN. Whatever meters that you have in Nigeria now is coming through the CBN. CBN is the one that is now financing, though highly subsidized, even though people are saying that it's not.
Okay.
Yes, it's not. But NEC, as a body to regulate, I must say they are playing their role. Yes, there could be some issues along the line, and corruption being one. But NEC has really, I will give them credit for what they have done so far. But you see, they are just an agency created by the government that is also regulated by the government policies. And it is this same government that will bring the policies that will also regulate those that are distribution companies. And these distribution companies, quite a lot of them in Nigeria, are not performing. They are underperforming. They received equipment that are dilapidated, and one of the reasons why the government also subsidizes this electricity is that they will be able to fix, to replace all these infrastructures. But as it is, they are not doing that. It is not that generation is not generating, but the distribution is the problem. That is why over half of Abuja is in darkness.
Are the issues on the investment by the part of government?
The government isn't, I wouldn't say the government is investing because the government has privatized it. So they have given them a very good platform for them to access funds, guaranteed funds. For instance, if any one of them should go to the bank, it's the government that will guarantee it because there's a system in place.
So are we having low investment from these private sectors?
Well, I will say that. From these investors, there is low investment. And of course, technical capabilities are not there in terms of the management. The way they're managing distribution of power, energy in Nigeria is very, very poor. Very, very poor. It's very, very poor. Look, they will say they are generating close to about, I'll say, 3,000 megawatts or say 2,500 megawatts. 2,500 megawatts is a lot of power. I'm an electrical engineer, so I know what that is.
Yeah,
that is a lot of power. But you see, the management of this power that is being generated is very, very poor. And most of it falls on the side of the distribution companies. Most of it because of the dilapidated infrastructures that they don't want to improve on.
Are there people taking advantage of these issues?
Yes.
Consuming some of the megawatts?
Yes, they are really taking undue advantage of this disjointed system. And that is why there's energy theft in Nigeria. Very easy to steal energy in Nigeria. Very easy to steal energy. And nobody will notice it. Nobody will notice it, And these, the government really needs to also up their game in terms of policies. And you see, one other challenge that we also have in Nigeria is that there's no continuity in governance.
Every government comes with a policy?
Yes, every government comes with a policy, and of course, it changes the modus operandi again. And that is causing a big stagnant in this industry. And it's setting the country back because most of these, conglomerates are leaving. They are leaving. It's not because of, say, the dollar or whatever. They are leaving because the operational cost is huge. It's massive. The operational cost is massive, So, I mean, these are some of the challenges that we are having in Nigeria today.
As an engineer, I understand you've also taken a case study of other countries and what is the global standard, for electrification. And recently, Ghana have been dragging Nigeria that we are doing a super good match. You understand?
Yeah, generators.
And all of that. Because it's not even the issue of corruption, because if we talked of corruption, even some African countries that have power are still having issues of corruption.
Yes.
Why is Nigeria's case so different? And as you said, we are afraid that it's even getting worse.
It's going to get worse. I'm a realist. I don't, because I was trained outside this country. I was trained in South Africa. And I can tell you, it's the same corruption that is affecting South Africa. South Africa has power, about 46,000 megawatts. But because they politicize the coal, most of their plants, 90% of their plants are coal-fired. It's a country of coal. It's sitting on coal and gold. And what they did wrong was they politicized taking the coal to the coal stations. And that is causing the problem. It's not that the power stations are not there. They have massive, well over 20 power stations in South Africa, totaling now 46,000 megawatts. That is why they have industries there. It's an industrialized nation. But you see, they politicized taking the coal from the mine to put it on the train system and take it straight into the coal station. They politicize it. What they are now doing is that they now take all the half cut of the coal, which has moistures. They take it to the, furnace, and as a result, those things don't work like that. If there's too much moist in it, the coal is not going to fire. So the good ones, they are taking it to Brazil, to China, to Australia. It goes straight from Mpumalanga province, it goes straight to Epangeni in KwaZulu-Natal, from there out of the country. That is the only problem South Africa has, because they politicize it. They took it away from the competent hands, and they now gave it to the people who have no idea of logistics. And as a result, the whole thing was, turned upside down. So, what is the problem here? The problem still remains that the government now needs to do more to now monitor these codes, these gen codes. For instance, now, some people, I heard of, a business magnate in Nigeria saying that the government should sell off the transmission line. For the sake of security, no government would do that. Because once you put everything in somebody's hand, they can turn light on and off as they want. They can start, fine-tuning whatever they want, how the government wants, how it's going to run, So the government policies are not continuous in Nigeria. The moment the government comes, they start another thing. And that is giving this discourse the opportunity not to perform. And I think that is very, very major in this part of the world. It's major in this part of the world, and our government needs to look into it. We have good hands in Nigeria that can manage this thing, but they rather make everything, throw it into the...
Because more than ever, Nigeria needs, at this time where economy is really dwindling, and small businesses are very struggling right now. And as you said, more companies seems to be leaving the country. More than ever, we need the investors. We need people to come into Nigeria. We need to strengthen electricity issues. As an engineer, if you were meant to be the minister of power, what are those things that you urgently put in place to making sure that Nigeria gets back lights, the issue of electricity?
Okay. One of the things that I want to do is, for me, as a minister, I'm not going to surround myself with comedians. I'm going to surround myself with people that knows the system.
What do you mean system? People that knows the sector?
Yes, that knows this sector very well. You know, as a minister, you can't do it alone because you need to delegate. That is when you actually function. You delegate, you know. And that is, look at what the Minister of Works is doing. That is what I will do. I'm going to surround myself with people of like minds. I will tell Mr. President, don't give me special advisors. Let me look for technocrats, people that are in the sector that knows how these things work. Let me surround myself with those because those are the people that I will need in order to deliver, you know, this system out of whatever shackles that we have found ourselves today. You know, get the right hands because these transmission lines, this system were built by Nigerians. The British used Nigerians to build it, and those Nigerians are still alive. So why do you now want to bring all these foreign? Yes, the foreign experts are welcome in terms of technological advancements and of course to transfer more skills. But we have Nigerians, we have engineers in Nigeria that can deliver this thing. But unfortunately, when it comes to the political harms of it, they twist everything and they make people who are not. So for me as a minister, I want to surround myself with those that are in the sector, that knows the problem, that knows how to access this problem and let us start fixing it. Not by doing, you know, media sensation and all that. We don't need that right now. The industries are dying in Nigeria, and a lot of engineers are also losing their job. Not just the engineers, a lot of workers, you know, employees, people that are supposed to be in employment, they've lost that.
All right. So our government really consulting the National Institute of Electrical and all the associations meant to really come into partner. I understand you're the vice president of the body. What has been your robust engagement with government briefly before we get into close?
As the vice chairman of NIEEE, Abuja chapter, and of course we also have the national body headquarters in Abuja. These are some of the things that we are doing, you know, trying to get into the system, that's the governance, to let them know strategically you need to involve engineers in some of your decision making. Don't push engineers out. And gladly, this current president, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, is doing that. He listened to engineers when he replaced an engineer with a non-engineer in an engineering agency. You know, engineers cried out and he listened. And thank God he actually picked somebody from that agency that has been there, that knows the system. So yeah, the national body has taken up that you know, responsibility to liaise with the government. Look, don't take unilateral decisions without consulting engineers. Engineers build a nation. That is what the Germans will always say. We build a nation. So, and that is what the national body is doing now, that you have to involve engineers in order to solve some of these problems that we are saying. Yeah. Engineers did the one in Aba now. Yes, they did the one in Aba. And that is how it should be.
We, of course, Nigeria are looking forward to getting the miracle in Aba to replicate in the other part of the state, and of course here in the Federal Capital Territory, of course to fix the issues of power and general, and that has been a very robust engagement with Engineer Adesoji Osoba, the Vice President of Electrical Society of Electrical Engineers here in the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja. We appreciate you immensely for bearing your thoughts and of course your articulated points here on the program. We'll go on a short break right now. Of course, when we return, we'll be taking a look at the fact that today is a Commonwealth Day, and the celebration have started from UK, and we'll be joining some discussions here from the studios shortly after this break. Stay with us.